What's going on, guys? It's Anime1 back here with another video, and today I'm here with another part of What If Naruto had the jougan. So if you guys like the content in the channel, please subscribe to the channel, and while you're at it, also like this video. So let's begin the video. Dense forest of the Fire Country. A young boy silently sat on one of the countless trees present in the area. The afternoon rays were protruding through the lands, and it was only the shade that provided by the trees that somewhat protected him from the bright sunlight and the scorching heat. Still, his thoughts were somewhere else entirely. It may have been just a close half to a day since that fateful day, and yet everything in the boy's life had turned upside down since that day. If we could look at Naruto right now, they could find the sight of a frustrated person whose fists were clenched very tightly, eyebrows deeply furrowed, his narrowed gaze staring at the shining Kanto resting on his lap. Either the afternoon heat or the occasional sound of wild animals bothered him in the least. "You're weak." Those words continued to resonate in his mind, his heart, every single second. His fist clenched further, breaking his skin he had been this close to. The sheer thought that he had nearly died yesterday by the hands of an unknown ninja was seriously humiliating, to say the least. He had always believed that he was quite a capable shinobi, not greatly strong, but skilled enough. It was for these beliefs that yesterday's encounter with Kisame had been a rude shock for him. Even with his new dojutsu, yes, he had survived, but that was not important. Simply surviving was much worse than defeat. It reminded him of the time when he was forced to flee Yuzu while his home country and country's men were being burned. While he cherished the Uzukage and his handful of warriors fought a suicidal battle, he had never shown it to his friends or the children that were still alive, but he was always angry. The screams of his dying clan terrorized him at night, their misery, letting him rest, and the others had somehow accepted this turn of events, but yet he couldn't. He just wouldn't. He had sworn vengeance. He would take vengeance. He had thought of the Uzumakis as a threat. And what if he did the same? What if he thought of the great nations as a threat and tried to eliminate them? He had sworn to change these things in this twisted world, yet he was too weak to fulfill his dreams. If he could only barely manage to stalemate with a hunter ninja, then he was not even worthy of facing a Kage. He had escaped from Suna, sneaked right behind into the Fire Nation, detected with a secret power. His plans had worked, and the fighters were mounting up on both sides of the borders, and soon there would be a war between them. Yet, did he feel defeated? Well, that question rang in his mind, and he knew the answer to that question. It was yes. He sat in his position for a few hours, trying to rethink about yesterday's events again and again. He had to put on a brave face in front of Kisame, which was enough to convince the Sark-like man. Much to Naruto's relief, he was not afraid of dying. He was a shinobi after all, yet dying a pointless death without accomplishing his dreams seemed quite useless to him. Power. His eyes widened as he remembered him saying those words to Kisame. He gritted his teeth on remembering how helpless he felt on seeing Ada nearly dying, Konoha Anbu killing his people, Uzu getting destroyed. The leaves around him started to wither and turn into ashes as his anger flowed through his heart. Never again. Never again. Every great leader who changed the world had been powerful in their own right. Even those who wouldn't accomplish their dreams had become powerful in their own right, making sure that the world remembered them and their ideals at the very least. Yeah, the very best example of this fate were Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. Naruto had no doubt about this in his heart. He was not even a bit like Hashirama. His heart burned with too much anger, too much thirst for power, yet too much hatred and regret of becoming such a beloved man. Neither was he sadly crazy like Madara, maybe somewhere in middle, yet he admired each of them for becoming such powerful shinobi. One accomplished his goals and changed the world, while the other couldn't, yet he left behind a legacy that made him, his clan, even more famous. That was it. He didn't want to feel helpless. If he didn't want to see his friends die. If he wanted to get revenge for his clan and accomplish his goal, he needed one thing, and that was power. To become strong, he had to become more cunning and smart to bring the change he desired. He would not only need individual power, but political, military, diplomatic, and financial powers. Make sure his remaining clansmen survived. He was not so sure about how long he would live since his goals would put him right in the heat of the conflicts and dangerous situation. So at the very least, he had to make sure that his friends and his people survived. And for that, he had to become strong. His gaze hardened as he firmly picked up his tanto. Walling in the past wouldn't change anything. He would use this humiliating encounter as a lesson and improve. And that was the only way to move forward. There is nothing else he could do. And with this thought, he again started to lose his journey to the secret hideout where his friends were waiting for him. His clones had dispelled itself a few hours ago, informing him that Ada was safe, although by the time the clone reached the hideout, the blue-haired girl had regained consciousness and looked in her eyes, had promised bloody murder if he ever came back alive, that is. He groaned, this is gonna be a quiet and unpleasant day, muttered Naruto as he started jumping across the trees. Konoha, Kushina curiously stared at the young girl, currently seated at a dining table, happily slurping down her way through the ramen noodles in her bowl, with a goofy smile on her face. A young Mito Uzumaki was a perfect image of a bubbly young lad. She couldn't help but smile on seeing daughter wore those glasses that she had got for him. It was nothing but a small birthday present, yet to see the girl cherished it till this day was heartwarming for her. Yet at the same time, it made her heart sink as well. The bitterness towards Minato increasing ever so slightly. So Uzumaki was Kushina and Minato's second child. Well, their relationship wasn't at some great stance where Naruto was taken away from her. She cursed at Minato, and their relationship was at a very high stakes. But due to anger, that some things led to another, and they spent the night. Well, that was a very aggressive night, with the way Kushina put it. And since Minato was always careless, and Mito was born. Looking at the picture of her son, it nearly made her tear up. She was truly happy for Mito having a good childhood and even cared for her daughter. It still made her realize that everything that her daughter had, everything that her son never had. And Mito's very existence reminded her of what her son would have been. Instead of the cold shinobi that stared at her with those emotionless eyes from the picture, if Mito was the light, then Naruto was the darkness. It was as simple as that for her. Despite all this, she was very grateful for her daughter being in her life. She was an idiot, but that was the only thing making her keep going on. While not enough, it had given Kushina enough reason to live on, with the hopes of her son someday reuniting by meeting his younger sister and his father. She has always dreamt of it. At last, it was never gonna happen. A soft hand was placed on her wrist as the sensation of a lone finger bruised off the tears falling from her cheeks finally brought out of her thoughts. She didn't even realize she had started crying again, and now was the target of Mito's worried gaze. "Are you okay?" said Mito, worriedly staring at her with unusual, innocent eyes. "Yes, thank you," replied Kusina gently. It was not a good thing to know her sorrowful on this girl. She deserved better. Mito fizzed a bit, and she saw she was desperately trying to overcome a decision. It actually reminded her of Minato, but after a few seconds, the girl had made up her mind, and her determined gaze was now fixed, and it was same as Minato himself. "I don't think he's dead," said Mito carefully, inflicting a surprised look on the red-haired Jinchuriki's face. Kushina saw the girl's gaze was fixed on Naruto's photograph. Minato had always been honest with his younger daughter and had revealed to Mito about the existence of their elder brother. Surprisingly, instead of feeling jealous, the Uzumaki was delighted and had pestered his parents for months to meet his sibling. At last, his wish never came true, just like her. Mito had always had fantasized about her own of someday meeting this younger, mysterious elder brother of her. It was childish, but then again, she was young and had a good heart. His desires to accept Naruto had what made Kushina love Mito and allowed him in their strange relationship to grow. As the news of Uzu's fall and the clan's demise spread in Konoha, she was the first to approach her. She had been brought even ramen for her, which was a good gesture of support, and had expressed a great regret for what happened to her family. Kushina was quite relieved that Mito had promised not to exact vengeance on the three cursed village who had committed that brutal massacre. Although the girl did promise the outset of the Kages, which was quite cute. It was her responsibility to avenge her clan, not Mito's. And now hearing her express her hopes of Naruto's survival made her heart rise. It was the first time anyone had said such thing, despite being the impossible odds. Yet it brought a light into another scary thought. Could Naruto truly forgive Konoha, her Minato, for not only abandoning him, but also letting Uzu burn to ashes? One look into the eyes of the icy cold boy in the picture was enough to give Kushina the answer. "I want to believe that too, Mito, but if he's alive, I don't think Naruto will want to come back after everything that has happened," said Kushina sadly. Looked at her daughter, the one she saw growing up, and the one she remembered who was beside her. Watching her grow up, helping him become strong was enough to show that despite her not being the way she was right now, Mito was her daughter, cute, rebellious, and "That's stupid," yelled Mito. She smirked as Mito herself called out the word which she had in her mind for her. That was not easy to say. He was she was dumb or anything, far from it. Yet in a way, Mito had never seen the harsh world that they all live in. But her stubbornness, self-refused to accept reality, had continued to believe in the peaceful world that he has always dreamed of. Mito warned Kushina before the girl went off on his young old rants. I don't understand, Mom. We are his family. Sure, he may fight, but this is his place with us, isn't it? Asked Mito hesitantly, receiving a smile from her. He's a peculiar boy, that one. The Uzukage always told me that Naruto had always been different from the others of his age. He didn't make friends and had compassion for those he cares about, yet he never forgave either me or his father for not being there for him, and rightly so. Imagining growing up as an orphan on your own despite having parents, asked Kushina patiently. Mito flinched. The defiant fire in her eyes dimmed considerably, and she imagined growing up all alone without the love of a family, relying only on herself, facing the world every day, alone, despite having parents. It was a curse. Realizing the down on the young Uzumaki, who finally understood and strained relationship with her younger sibling that had with his parents. Her eyes shifted towards the picture of Naruto Uzumaki, the boy that had always been mysterious to her. A part of her had trained hard to be a fine shinobi when she heard about Naruto acing the Chunin exams, and yet Mita couldn't bear to see the sadness in Kushina's eyes. She really did miss her son, and despite Mita's best efforts, she knew she could not fill that hole completely. Kushina had always been kind to her, despite spoiling her a lot. She was the one who gave her awesome goggles, introduced her to ramen, helped him and refined her taijutsu style, and most of all, she really believed that she could bring peace to the world and become Hokage one day. Kushina was startled when Mito looked at her in the eyes and gently grasped her hand. I'll bring him back to you. I promise, said Mito fiercely, a grim determination in her eyes burning. You don't have to do that, Mito. Please don't, pleaded Kushina, not wanting to place a certain heavy burden on her young child's shoulder. But Mito had already made up her mind, and she shook her head. I'll drag him back to Konoha, screaming if I have to. I won't accept anything less, declared Mito confidently. You're really set on this, aren't you? Asked Kushina with a sigh of relief, even as he suppressed tears arriving in her eyes. Till the end, promised Mito. For the first time, Kushina felt hope rising up in her heart. A picture of her older, brooding Naruto embracing her and living the rest of his life with his family passed in front of her eyes, and as she looked into Mito's determined gaze, made her wonder, maybe you'll succeed where I failed, Mito. Naruto was not surprised to find Arashi waiting for him near the borders of their campsite. After all, it was necessary that one of the trio was always on the guard duty despite the powerful traps and seals that had been set in every direction. His friend was giving him a tired smile as both of them exchanged a brief hug. You really like getting into trouble, don't you? Asked Arashi with a heavy sigh as Naruto grinned. Life would be bad and exciting without them, replied Naruto cheekily as Arashi lowered his head in disbelief and shook it. That bad? Asked Naruto worriedly. Even if Arashi didn't sound too cheerful, then it was definitely confirmed that Ada had went nuts. "I'll bury you afterwards, for the old time's sakes," said Rossi dramatically, receiving a mild glare from his best friend. "Hey, shut up. I'm just using the reckless phase. But not Ada. You do this to Naruto. She loves Arasi flinched when he received a cold glare from Naruto. The fact that his friend had even raised his hand to stop him from speaking further went to show Naruto's reluctant in this matter. "I've said this before. I have no time for relationships. I care for her, and would not hesitate to risk my life for her, but my dreams are way too different from her," said Naruto fiercely. "Still after power, huh?" asked Rossi knowingly, and was not surprised on receiving a proud nod. "You are free to choose a different path if you like. I don't want either of you to follow me just because we're friends," said Naruto flatly. You know I've got your back, no matter what. Same goes for Ada," replied Rossi confidently, making Naruto smile. "I'm grateful for that. Just that Ada deserves someone better, even if I feel the same way that she feels for me," said Naruto, as Rossi sighed. "Regrettable. You two have made of a good couple. Tease Rossi, bastard. Easy. I'm trying to make her understand, but it'll take time. But you never told me. Why do you don't want to be in a relationship with her so much, even when you love her?" asked Orochi, making Naruto flinch. "Well, that's a long story. I'll tell you another time. But if she knows about my dark secrets, she'll probably hate me. Yet other fucking love me," said Naruto, as Orochi flinched. That was something that was very big statement to make. He knew for a fact that Ada loved Naruto more than anything in the world, and for Naruto to say that if she knew the secret of Naruto, she would hate him, that made him curious. Orochi stared at his friend curiously as a question crossed his mind, deciding to answer the way he looked at his friend right in the eye. "So, if not Ada, what kind of girl do you like? I'm sure we can arrange something eventually," teased Orochi. "Now you're doing this on purpose," sulked Naruto, earning a light chuckle from his friend. "Humor me." Naruto wanted to protest. This wasn't just the time, neither did he want to discuss a useless topic. His friends were his closest allies, yet they didn't share his vision, and were as fiercely devoted to it as he was. He didn't resent them for that, but it sure looked him in sometimes. Maybe that was why he felt the strange sensation of camaraderie with Kisame. Sure, the Kiri ninja was crazy, but he understood, and that he was made the man extremely valuable to Naruto. He didn't see the large mimesis or great wars to fulfill his vision. It could be completed with least of bloodshed and less conflict. All he needed were people like him and time, and he would make his dream a reality. Still judging from the look in Rossi's eyes, his friend wanted an answer, and was not going to relent without one, and consider he would need Rossi to handle Ada now more than ever made Naruto reliant. It was better to have at least one of his friends taking his side to conserve their group. "Fine," said Naruto tiredly, and glared at Orochi who was grinning. Naruto dived into his mind for a image of a suitable girlfriend. Only one image popped. It was Ada. But beside that, there is nothing more. Well, that's a shame. "I don't know," said Naruto honestly, quite stunned with his own clueless answer and the lack of desire. Orochi briefly closed his eyes, and he was right. The boy standing in front of him may appear to normal to most people, but deep inside, his friend was broken. Sometime which neither even he or Ada could heal. The first very contact with male child had in his life would be with their mothers in most cases, and with Naruto's case, that was not the case. But the fairest sex had been destructive on every level. The shock of being rejected by his own mother still haunted his friend till this day, and it was the secret why Naruto was so uncomfortable around people, especially females. The fear of being betrayed again terrified the boy. Hey, Orochi. Naruto called out for his friend. Orochi looked at Naruto and saw the serious look on Naruto's eyes, and then he turned serious too. What is it, Naruto? Asked Orochi. Do you know what domain expansion? Asked Naruto. Orochi shook his head. He had never heard of such technique or term. Yeah, well, I suppose you wouldn't. It's a secret even among the Uzumaki. Only a few know it. Since I was the guard of the Uzukage, I knew this technique. Well, I don't know how to perform it, but I know the basics. And I'll tell you the basics. The rest is up to you. The domain expansion can only be used by Uzumaki because of our large chakra reserves. You can manifest the chains that the Uzumaki clan meant can. Either me or Ada can do that. That's why you might be able to perform it. In the whole village, only Uzukage could perform the domain expansion technique, and it was a truly fearsome technique. It made him stronger than all the 5 Kages of the rest of the village. Maybe that was why the 3 villages banded together to destroy our village. Maybe that was why they feared us. Maybe, I don't know. But this is the scroll, Naruto said as he poofed a scroll poofed out of his pouch, and he threw it towards Orochi. Remember, Orochi, you have to be more selfish. Don't always think about others. A shinobi's growth isn't always smooth. It can be with bumpy rides, and one evolves the most in the midst of battle. I want you to remember that. Okay? Said Naruto as Orochi nodded and opened the scroll, and he was reading it. Maybe he could perform this technique that Naruto was talking about. I'll leave you to it, but we'll have to start preparing to go to the location that I want to go, said Naruto as Orochi looked at him. Where are you planning to go, Naruto? As I said, we are not safe here. We have to leave the Fire Nation now or sometime soon, and we need a village to shelter us. Well, I will not serve that village or anything, but I need a place for my clan to stay and breed out and soon rise upon this world. Orochi, I want you to be the leader of the clan, since I'm not gonna be there, said Naruto, as Orochi looked at him, completely shocked. You gotta be joking, right? There's a fucking war going on, Naruto. You cannot be serious about this shit, said Orochi. Naruto shook his head. I'm dead serious. As I said, my goals differ from yours. You're not enough, Orochi. I need strong allies. Very strong. And when you think you're strong enough to face a Kage, then maybe you can stand beside me, Naruto said. And that was the reality, and Orochi knew it. Naruto right now, ever since he unlocked that eye, had enough power to face a Kage. And that scar over his eye, he didn't know where he got him from, but where he got it, it was very bad. His eye had always been closed ever since he achieved that dojutsu, and he only used it throughout battles and for sneaking out and stuff. It was really amusing to Orochi. Very well then, Orochi said as he closed his eyes. But where are we heading to? Asked Orochi. Naruto closed his eyes. There was only one location that was in his mind that could keep him safe and accept Shinobi. Have you ever heard of Hanzo the Salamander? Asked Naruto as Orochi shook his head. No, I haven't. Good, good, you haven't heard of him. He is the leader of Omekikari, the leader of the Hidden Rain Village. There's no doubt in his mind that he would accept us as one of his own. But that's not my plan. I plan to take over the land of rain and make it our own continent. Do you agree with me? Arashi looked at his friend as if he was crazy. You gotta be kidding me, Naruto. You have to be kidding me. Do you seriously think we can defeat someone who had defeated all the legendary three Sanin at the same goddamn time? Asked Arashi. He was particularly screaming at his friend right now. No, I'm sure there are many people who oppose Hanzo in the Hidden Rain because of his ways. He is not a very kind man, Arashi, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people who would support us in this thing, said Naruto as Arashi gritted his teeth. Very well then, when are we leaving? Asked Arashi. Naruto looked at him. Tomorrow morning, we're going to the land, the village of the Hidden Rain.